Hello again. Let's talk about Area of Study 2, Culture and Ethnicity. This is our 5th lesson on this one, and it's from the textbook pages 85 and 86. So our learning goals for today are know what ethnocentrism is and be able to give concrete examples of ethnocentrism from Australian history. Choice. So, ethnocentrism is, here's the definition of it, it's evaluating and judging another culture by using your own culture as the measuring stick for what's right and wrong. Make sure you're copying down everything in white here. It's common and it's hard to avoid. Yeah, everyone's ethnocentric to a certain extent. It's like being biased in favour of your own ethnicity, pretty much. Some think being loyal to your own people and culture might actually require it. There's quite a few sociologists who point out that really it's impossible to not be a little bit ethnocentric. And it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. So ethnocentrism is on a scale. The weak version is, oh yeah, my own culture is valuable and should be shared. So I'm a New Zealander, I might go, yeah, go the All Blacks. You should watch the rugby. However, the strong version says to ignore, devalue, and dismiss other cultures. Yeah. So obviously the strong version of ethnocentrism goes down towards the direction of racism. Yeah, strong version's racist. Cool. Not cool. After 1788, Australia was built on the ethnocentric view that British culture was superior to all others, and in particular, Indigenous culture. Said that British practices and beliefs were the correct ones, so like British attitudes towards land management, British religion, Christianity got introduced, and other cultures were seen as inferior. For example, the Chinese miners who came over in the 1800s, they were looked down upon as inferior. Greek and Italian migrants during post-World War II. Australia is way more diverse now, and actually, the Greek and Italian migrants that are in Australia are much better received than they were when they first got here, just after the Second World War. Australia is way less ethnocentric now, but ethnocentrism does still exist in Australia. For example, and this is the case study that we're going to be looking at for this topic, seeing Sudanese people in Melbourne as gangs. So you might see a whole bunch of young Sudanese people on a tram, think, oh, it's a gang going into town, they're going to cause chaos, but actually it might just be a group of young people going together to and from school or a sporting event or whatever. Yeah, and that's our ethnocentric view that might make us think that they're dodgy. Right, here's a video about ethnocentrism, the advantages and disadvantages.
Advantage. It enables us to develop love for the nation and beliefs in its culture, tradition, and values. It generates pride and self-confidence among the people of the group. It defines social standard and behavior of the group is expected to follow, thus creating the feeling of belonging and unity. Disadvantage. Blind faith in one culture. Disliking or making false judgments on other cultures. Discrimination towards others on the basis of differences in beliefs. Though not always so, in the recent years, the concept of ethnocentrism has gained more negative tone due to discrimination on ethnic grounds. History has shown us how it can have tragic consequences if it's not controlled. Does this concept seem familiar to you? Even though we deny it, most of us are ethnocentric in some part of our lives, some not even realizing that we are being ethnocentric at that moment. Let me show you some examples of ethnocentrism to help you understand it better. In American society, if you live in America, there is this popular belief among the American ethnocentric people. We see ourselves as the world leader, and therefore the United States cultures, value, and everything else are superior and better than every other nation in the world. This belief has led to political interference and control in other countries, leading to misunderstandings and miscommunication between different countries in the world. In some cases, war and deaths among innocent people. So think for a moment. From the daily TV news, you can see that the present-day politics is a good example of Americans' ethnocentrism toward other countries. The history of imperialism. According to Webster Dictionary, imperialism is defined as policy or practice by which a country increases its power by gaining control over other areas of the world. The most famous example of it would be European imperialism, where European countries believe that other areas of the world, such as Africa, North and South America, India, etc., are uncivilized and undeveloped countries with savages and barbarians. How ethnocentric work in the case of European imperialism is that during that period of time, they believe they are more superior, more civilized, and more developed than other countries, which is why they saw it as necessary to establish colonies to control and to educate these places in order to help them rise up to their own cultural standard. Ethnocentrism in school. If you grew up in a developed first world nation, you will mostly spend the first 2 decades of your life in school. Ethnocentrism can be witnessed in school across the world through the curriculum and cultural education reinforcement. From the start, children are taught about their country through history and traditional values and customs, which might lead them to develop prejudice and bias against other countries in the future. Many experts agree that some curriculum like history, civic, and economic focus more on major developed countries while ignoring the underdeveloped countries. Sometimes, unintentionally, the curriculums will be discriminatory toward minority communities that do not share the common cultural norms and values, which leads to negative ethnocentrism effect where the students belong to minority communities can feel sidelined, targeted, or ignored in school. Terrorism and hate crimes. To think that your culture is better than others and judge other culture based on your culture's value and tradition is a negative example of ethnocentrism. When one religion or community believes that it is superior and better than any other religion or community, it can lead to hate crime and terrorism violence. Due to ethnocentric beliefs, many people are blindsided from seeing things from another perspective. Just because another community or religious group do something that yours doesn't make it inferior to yours. In some unfortunate and tragic cases.
So the reflection activity today, do this in your exercise book. Describe a time when you have been ethnocentric. Be honest with yourself, and I want you to write at least 3 sentences for that reflection activity. And the homework is watch that video. It's a video from the Khan Academy about ethnocentrism. And then I want you to read this website. That's just a simple link to it. bit.ly/ethnocentricoz. And then I want you to list 5 Australian examples of ethnocentrism. 2 from the weekend, where you're just saying, oh yeah, my culture should be shared. 1 from somewhere in the middle, and 2 from the strong end. 2 from the end which says that other cultures should be ignored or devalued, and that's a little bit racist. No, it seems this is a harsh example to do to describe an example of something that's racist. But I want you to have a go. So list 5 examples of ethnocentrism from the weak end to the strong end, in your own words, in your exercise book. Thank you very much. Keep it real.